Are you playing the worst color in Commander? White was kind of undeniably the worst color in the format for some time. But it's 2026 now, and I think most would argue that white is in a pretty dramatically different place than it was 6 years ago. It's definitely not the worst. This all begs the question, what is the worst color in Magic the Gathering right now, and what can Wizards do to make it better? Before we talk about individual colors, let's be clear about what really matters in a game of Commander. Assuming you're playing casually, let's assume brackets 1 through 4, the most important thing in any deck is access to mana and access to cards. Some colors have ramp in the form of actual ramp spells like Rampant Growth, others excel at temporary ramp with treasure tokens, and some colors don't ramp very well at all. Access to cards means literal card draw, or your ability to make sure you always have something you could be playing. Card advantage is not created equally across all colors, but colors with consistent access to card draw can play longer games and outpace decks that end up in top deck mode too often. Card draw and ramp go hand in hand. Colors with strong ramp and card draw frequently excel in Commander, and those without tend to lag behind. So we're going to take a look at each individual color and see how well they excel at these two key elements of Commander. A lot of players will tell you that green is the best color in Commander, and it's kind of hard to argue with that. Green also has the best ramp in the game, which makes total sense. Not only does it have all the 2-mana spells like 3 Visits and Farseek, but it also gets turn 1 mana dorks that can accelerate you way ahead of everyone else's mana rocks and ramp spells. Green also has more expensive ramp that puts it way over the top, things like Skyshroud Claim and all the other explosive vegetation variants, so its ramp package builds on itself. And, of course, green has some of the biggest ramp payoffs too, whether that be Avenger of Zendikar or just big stuff like Craterhoof Behemoth. Green's no slouch with card draw either. It's actually kind of crazy how many cards you can draw in green these days. Something like Up the Beanstalk can draw 5 to 10 cards on its own, and other enchantments like Elemental Bond and Garruk's Uprising put in work too. Green also has big card draw spells like Return of the Wild Speaker and Rishkar's Expertise that usually have other functionality as well. Whoever said it's not easy being green was a bold-faced liar, because in Commander, green's got it good. How about blue? Well, unless you're looking at Simic cards, blue doesn't really have access to much ramp. But it does have access to a lot of cost reduction effects and artifact mana, so it kind of makes up for it there. Card draw, however, yeah, blue's got plenty of that. There is an argument to be made that green actually has blue beat when it comes to card draw these days, but blue's still got plenty of draw power, whether from small cantrips like Ponder or big draw spells like Blue Sun Zenith. For what it's worth, this is exactly why Simic is such an incredible color combination in Commander. Blue excels at drawing cards, and green excels at making mana. Put those together, and you've got both of the key elements I was talking about just a moment ago. Black does a solid job at ramping, definitely not as much as green, but it does have a couple of really powerful options. A lot of this is off the back of Cabal Coffers and temporary bursts of mana from Dark Ritual, but those are highly effective cards. Black also makes quite a bit of treasure, so it's got a backup source of mana generation in a lot of decks. Card draw is honestly no issue for black either. Of course, everything comes at a cost in black, but if you're willing to pay the price, you should have no issue keeping your hand full in a black deck. Night's Whisper, Deadly Dispute, Morbid Opportunist, Phyrexian Arena, so on and so forth. The tools are there, even if they require a little more setup than blue's draw spells do. So red ramp is kinda dubious to say the very least. It relies heavily on treasure tokens and rituals, which sounds a lot like black, but it doesn't do quite as well, especially now that Dockside Extortionist isn't in the picture. That's not to say red can't make a bunch of mana, because it definitely can. It's just usually isolated to a few staples. You've got your burst mana rituals like Jessica's Will and Mana Geyser, and you've got some treasure tokens from things like Professional Facebreaker, Big Score, and Goldspan Dragon. It's there if you want it, but it's almost always temporary. Red card draw takes the form of impulse draws, which are the effects that exile cards and let you play them from exile for a set period of time. There are a ton of variants of Reckless Impulse now, and it feels like every other new red card is impulse drawing in one way or another. Red's card draw is definitely lagging behind the other colors, but it gets there in its own unique way. White ramp is really funny because it's mostly isolated to a few really good cards like Smothering Tithe and Land Tax, but you've also got funny options like Weathered Wayfarer and Deep Gnome Terramancer. White's catch-up cards do a fine job too, things like Beza and Archaeomancer's Map, but they're worse than ramp options in other colors by design. White is literally supposed to be worse at ramping than other colors. It's just part of how Magic's color pie developed over time. And here we are, white card draw. Where is it here? With us now? Is it real? Look, jokes aside, white is actually doing pretty good on card draw these days. It's not nearly as good as the Sultai Spectrum card advantage, but we're doing a lot better than Mentor of the Meek these days. White card draw is still mostly tied to small creatures with things like Welcoming Vampire and Enduring Innocence, but those are good card advantage tools, and white has a decent number of clue token cards to draw off of as well. White also has Esper Sentinel, which is Mystic Remora levels of good card draw, and almost single-handedly pulled white out of its slump when it came out back in Modern Horizons 2. If we had to rank the colors by card advantage, it would probably go a little something like this. We'd probably have blue and green in the top tier, black in the middle, and red and white in the bottom tier. If we ranked them by ramp, we'd have green as the undisputed number 1, black and red right below it, and blue and white tied for last place. This is not a great look for white because it's kind of in the bottom tier of both of those lists. But hold on, there's more to consider than just that. And if you hit that subscribe button, I might just let you know what it is. We also have to point out some of the strengths of the colors and see if those strengths make up for their shortcomings. Let's dive back in. Green's biggest strength is ramp. That's just what it does best. And it's lacking a little bit in the removal department, but who needs removal when you can cast a million giant creatures and just overrun your opponent? Blue's biggest contribution to Commander is counter magic, and it is still the undisputed king of stack interaction. In fact, Blue's counter magic spells are so strong that alone almost makes up for its lack of ramp. Black is kinda like a jack of all trades. It gets a bit of ramp, a little bit of card draw, plus the best sacrifice effects, reanimation spells, and tutors in the game. Black cards cover so much ground that they almost don't even have a weakness, except like Graveyard Hate. Oh yeah, and I guess black also doesn't get any artifact destruction. That leaves us with red and white, and at this point I'd say it's pretty obvious these are our bottom 2 contenders. For my money, red's in last place, and I'll tell you why. White actually offers a lot of individually powerful cards for Commander. It has some of the best board wipes in the format, like Farewell and Sunfall. It has the best single target removal spell in Swords to Plowshares. It has the best protection spell in Teferi's Protection. It has one of the best ramp cards in Smothering Tithe, and it has freaking Esper Sentinel. White has so many best-in-class cards that you can just play a bunch of white staples and you're probably doing fine. Add to that the fact that white now has pretty good access to card advantage, and I think it's safe to say it's finally out of the dredges where it was 4 or 5, even 10 years ago. One of red's biggest contributions is Burn, which is really hard to pull off in a 4-player format unless you're really building around it. Sure, you've got Blasphemous Act and Chaos Warp, but that's really where the list stops. Red excels at artifact destruction, but that's not unique to the color either. Green and white can destroy artifacts just fine. Just take a look at the current Game Changers list. Red has fewer cards than any other color in the pie. You could make an argument that Deflecting Swat belongs there, but how many other top-tier, meta-defining cards can you think of in red? I'm so sorry, but just not that many, if you ask me. It's not unplayable, it's not terrible, I'm not saying that, it just doesn't have many strengths that you can't already get from other colors. How does WotC make red better in Commander? Well, pushing already what it does well hasn't seemed to help much. You can only make burn spells so strong without disrupting constructed formats, and the impulse draw effects are already pretty good. You may not want to hear this, but one thing that could be done to red to position it a little better would be to add more land destruction effects. That's not really something I expect Wizards to do anytime soon, and it's probably not a net positive for the format, but land denial's definitely in red's wheelhouse. Maybe a way to address this would be to print more cards like Price of Progress and Sunspine Links. There is also the Mana Dork angle. I know they don't want to make red Mana Dorks as powerful as green ones, but maybe we could get something a little better than Sunset Strikemaster or Purple Dragon Punks in the future. And there you have it, folks. Definitive, airtight, and objective proof that red is the worst color in Commander. I'm kidding, it's all about how you play the cards. Red's not quite as bad today as white was a few years back, but it's pretty clear that it has some catching up to do to compete with the Sultai colors.